At this very moment, millions of cells in your body are waiting. The next chemical signal, the next hormonal trigger, the next wave of glucose that will flood your blood like an inevitable torrent. And it all begins long before the first crunchy piece touches your tongue. Your body has spent hours in a state of relative calm. The pancreas releases insulin in small, controlled doses. Liver cells store glycogen with millimetric precision. The small intestine maintains its lining intact, with its villi spread out like a microscopic forest, absorbing nutrients with silent efficiency. Blood vessels flow cleanly, with a stable diameter. The brain operates with balanced neurotransmitters: dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, all at their usual concentrations. There is no urgency, there is no alarm, just the steady rhythm of an organism in a basal state. But when French fries enter the scene, something changes immediately. Even before chewing, the salivary glands activate. The aroma of hot oil and salt triggers olfactory signals that travel directly to the hypothalamus. The brain registers fat, refined carbohydrates, concentrated sodium, and it responds. Dopamine begins to rise, not yet from pleasure, but from anticipation. It is a learned pattern. The body recognizes this specific combination: hydrogenated vegetable fat, processed starch, salt crystals, and it prepares. The first bite is a sensory explosion, but also a chemical one. The tongue detects salt at concentrations that far exceed physiological needs. Taste receptors send signals of immediate reward. But what happens next is less visible and much deeper. As you chew, salivary enzymes begin breaking down starch into simple sugars. French fries, stripped of their fiber during industrial processing, turn into glucose almost instantly. There is no resistance. There is no break, only rapid conversion. In the stomach, saturated oil and trans fats mix with gastric juices. The stomach lining, designed to handle whole, natural foods, now faces a foreign substance. Fat molecules altered by high temperatures. Acrylamide particles formed during frying. Oxidized compounds the body does not recognize as real food. The stomach works more slowly than usual. Fat delays gastric emptying. There is a sensation of heaviness that is not imaginary. It is mechanical. It is real. When the mixture reaches the small intestine, absorption begins violently. Glucose floods the bloodstream within minutes. Blood sugar levels spike. The pancreas detects the emergency and responds with a massive surge of insulin. This is not a controlled release. It is a shock response. Cells open to receive glucose, but there is too much, too fast. The liver converts the excess into fat. Triglycerides rise. The blood becomes more viscous, thicker, harder to pump. Meanwhile, the absorbed salt pulls water from cells into the bloodstream. Blood pressure rises. The kidneys try to compensate by filtering excess sodium, but blood volume has already increased. The heart beats more forcefully. Blood vessels constrict slightly. It is not pain. It is internal tension, hemodynamic stress. In the brain, dopamine reaches its peak. There is a sensation of intense pleasure, but brief. Too brief. Because this type of chemical reward does not last. It is artificial. It is a supernormal stimulus, a combination of fat, salt, and refined carbohydrates that does not exist in nature. The brain releases endogenous opioids, the same compounds that generate addiction, and the cycle is established. The body wants more, not because it needs it, but because the reward system has been hijacked. Insulin levels remain elevated for hours, too elevated. When glucose finally drops, it does not do so gently. It plummets. Reactive hypoglycemia. The brain, which depends on constant glucose, interprets this as an emergency. Cortisol is released. Adrenaline rises. There is irritability, fatigue, anxiety. The body asks for more food, more sugar, more stimulation. But it is not real hunger. It is a hormonal mismatch. Inside the arteries, something else is happening. Trans fats and oxidized oils initiate an inflammatory process. Endothelial cells lining the blood vessels become irritated. Adhesion molecules activate. White blood cells begin sticking to arterial walls. This is the microscopic beginning of atherosclerosis. It does not hurt. It is not felt, but it is there. Accumulating. Silent. The liver, overloaded with fat and fructose derived from processed carbohydrates, begins storing lipids within its own cells. Non-alcoholic fatty liver. It does not happen immediately after a single meal, but each episode contributes. Every insulin spike, every load of saturated fat, every wave of inflammation. The liver becomes inflamed. Liver enzymes rise. Detoxification capacity decreases. In the intestine, microscopic villi attempt to absorb nutrients, but there is almost nothing to absorb. French fries lack vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. There are only empty calories. The gut microbiome, that colony of trillions of bacteria that regulates immunity, digestion, even mood, takes a hit. Beneficial bacteria have no fiber to ferment. Pathogenic bacteria proliferate in an environment rich in fat and sugar. Balance is broken. Intestinal permeability increases. Bacterial toxins leak into the bloodstream. Systemic inflammation. But then something changes. Imagine this habit stopping. That the body no longer receives this daily toxic load. That French fries disappear from the dietary pattern. At first, the brain protests. Dopamine drops. There is craving. Almost desperation. But it is not hunger. It is neurological addiction fading. And if the change is sustained, something extraordinary begins to happen. The pancreas, no longer bombarded with constant glucose spikes, begins to regulate insulin production. Beta cells recover. Insulin sensitivity improves. Muscle and adipose cells respond better to normal hormonal signals. Blood sugar levels stabilize. There are no more metabolic roller coasters. Just a steady, predictable, healthy flow. Blood vessels, freed from chronic inflammation, begin to repair themselves. Endothelial cells regenerate. Arterial elasticity improves. Blood pressure gradually decreases. The heart no longer needs to pump with such force. The cardiovascular system enters a state of lower resistance. More efficiency, less wear. In the liver, fat cells begin to be metabolized. The organ regains its detoxification function. Liver enzymes return to normal ranges. Bile production is optimized. Digestion improves. Cellular energy is restored. The intestine, now nourished with fiber, vegetables, complete proteins, begins to heal. Villi regenerate. The intestinal lining seals. Permeability decreases. The microbiome rebalances. Beneficial bacteria proliferate. They produce short-chain fatty acids that nourish intestinal cells, reduce inflammation, regulate the immune system. The body becomes less reactive, less inflamed. Within days, blood triglyceride levels begin to fall. Oxidized LDL cholesterol, the most dangerous type, decreases. HDL, the protective cholesterol, remains stable or even increases. Blood flows cleaner, clearer, less loaded with toxic particles. The brain, detoxified from the artificial dopamine cycle, begins to rediscover pleasure in natural stimuli. Real food tastes good again. Serotonin regulates more steadily. Mood improves. Mental clarity increases. Brain fog, that sensation of confusion and sluggishness, begins to dissipate. If this change is maintained for weeks, the internal contrast is monumental. A body that operated in constant emergency mode now rests in a state of balance. Inflammatory markers in the blood decrease. C-reactive protein, interleukin-6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, all decline. The body is no longer at war with itself. Body weight may change, but more importantly, body composition transforms. Visceral fat, the kind that surrounds internal organs and releases inflammatory molecules, begins to decrease. Organs breathe. They function better. Metabolism accelerates not through stimulants, but through genuine cellular efficiency. The skin, a direct reflection of internal health, clears. Less acne, less inflammation, better circulation. Skin cells receive real nutrients. They regenerate faster. The glow returns. And somewhere deep inside, at the cellular level, DNA responds. Patterns of gene expression change. Inflammatory genes are silenced. Repair and longevity genes are activated. This is epigenetics in action. The body rewriting its destiny. Two versions of the same organism. One in metabolic chaos, the other in physiological harmony. The difference is not in a single day. It is in the pattern, in repetition, in the sustained choice of which chemical signals to send to billions of cells that wait, always wait, for the next instruction. The body never forgets the habits that govern it.